Chapter 381. Ji'in was nowhere to be seen. A corpse, a ghost, and a fox had all fled into the inner hall one after another. Taihe understood exactly what had happened. He glared coldly at Xuemei, who was surrounded by lightning, and cursed, useless. Without bothering with Xuemei, he continued flying toward the inner hall without slowing down. Taihe's chains had only limited some of Song Wen's movements. They hadn't suppressed the flow of spiritual energy within him. At the moment he collided with the Ghost King's massive sword, he used a life-saving technique to escape. Simultaneously, he employed the Spirit Concealing Mist, a skill he had acquired from Du Tianhua. It allowed him to condense his spiritual sense into a thread, giving it a stronger penetrating ability. Using the Spirit Concealing Mist, Song Wen cautiously extended his spiritual sense outwards, reaching toward the stone door of the inner hall. However, inside the inner hall, it felt as if there was an invisible wall. Even with the Spirit Concealing Mist, his spiritual sense could not penetrate it deeply. With the help of the life-saving technique's displacement ability, Song Wen's true form appeared at the entrance to the inner hall. Then he released the Silver Corpse and the Ghost King while simultaneously casting the Great Cave Thunder to ambush Xuemei. He aimed solely to seize the formation plate from her. With the power of the formation in her hands, Xuemei had managed to contend with Taihe, who was in the nascent soul stage. If Song Wen wanted to leave this place alive, he too had to turn his focus to the formation. As soon as he entered the inner hall, he realized that the ghostly mist was incredibly thick, almost tangible. In the inner hall, it was like being deep under the ocean. The ghostly mist churned around him, pressing against his body as if it were deep-sea water. It seemed intent on assimilating him, trying to turn him into a mindless wraith. He activated the Corpse King Blood Refinement Technique, instantly transforming into the appearance of an ancient corpse. Immediately, the pressure from the ghostly mist weakened significantly. He couldn't help but marvel. Even Xuemei's silver corpse body couldn't resist the erosion of the ghostly mist, yet the Corpse King Blood Refinement Technique could dampen its effect. However, the Corpse King Blood Refinement Technique couldn't completely resist the mist's erosion. He couldn't stay in the inner hall for long, as prolonged exposure would eventually lead to his own corruption by the ghostly mist. Song Wen took the formation plate from the Silver Corpse and stored both the Silver Corpse and 2 sacred armor insects inside his body, leaving only the Ghost King by his side. The Silver Corpse and sacred armor insects couldn't withstand the ghostly mist, but the Ghost King could move freely within the inner hall. Only then did Song Wen begin to observe his surroundings. The inner hall was not large, covering only a few acres. The further in he went, the denser the ghostly mist became. Concerned that the mist deep within the hall might accelerate the transformation of his body, he dared not venture further and stayed about 10 feet to the left of the stone gate. The nether fox lay heavily wounded in the center of the hall, its pitch-black eyes fixed on Song Wen. Fox-type demonic beasts generally had high intelligence, so Song Wen attempted to communicate with the nether fox. Senior Nether Fox, I'm sure you can see that I'm not with the people who hurt you in the outer hall. I hope you'll allow me to take refuge here as a gesture of goodwill for helping you escape. It was unclear whether the nether fox didn't understand human speech or simply didn't want to acknowledge him, but it continued to glare at him coldly without any response. Since Senior Nether Fox remains silent, I'll take it as your agreement, Song Wen said, while raising both hands and slowly approaching the fox. The Ghost King, wielding its giant sword, followed closely behind him. Sensing Song Wen's ulterior motives, the nether fox rose, arched its back, and let out a low growl. Senior, please don't misunderstand, I only dash. Before Song Wen could finish, he heard movement behind him from the stone gate of the inner hall. After Song Wen and the nether fox entered the inner hall, the stone door closed automatically. As the stone door swung open, Taihe's figure suddenly appeared at the entrance. However, he did not recklessly charge into the inner hall. Instead, he activated his chain artifact, shooting it toward the depths of the inner hall. Upon hearing movement from the stone door, Song Wen disregarded the cover of the ghostly mist and activated the Thunder Escape technique. Darting deeper into the inner hall, the chains swept back and forth through the inner hall like headless flies, returning without success. The swirling ghostly mist within the inner hall exerted immense pressure on his spiritual sense. Even Taihe, a mid-stage nascent soul cultivator, could only perceive a range of a few feet. After pondering for a moment, Taihe stepped into the inner hall. Instantly, the ghostly mist surged toward him, a magical shield of power ignited around Taihe. The white shield stood out prominently against the pitch-black ghostly mist. However, under the erosion of the mist, the shield rapidly turned black and dim. Noticing the change in the shield's brightness, Taihe's expression darkened. He took 2 steps back, retreating from the inner hall. He turned and approached Xuemei, his gaze cold as ice. Why is the ghostly mist in the inner hall so dangerous? I am a mid-stage nascent soul cultivator, yet I can't even withstand it. Xuemei felt like a thorn was digging into her back under Taihe's intense stare, her heart pounding with fear. At this point, she had lost the formation plate and was no match for Taihe. If Taihe wanted to kill her, it would be incredibly easy. This place is called the Hall of the Nether Gods. It is where the ancient demon giant, the divine Bloodgate, nurtures the blood wraith guards. The ghostly mist here originates from the misty domain and possesses the ability to contaminate cultivators' powers and minds. The erosion of the ghostly mist is all-encompassing, making it difficult for anyone, regardless of their cultivation level, to resist. Taihe frowned and said in a deep voice, if that's the case, how can that Foundation Establishment Junior resist the pollution of the ghostly mist? Xuemei shook her head, her expression revealing her confusion. I'm not sure about that either. As far as I know, only the blood wraith guards can briefly remain within the ghostly mist and even use its power to temper their bodies. That's difficult too. Xuemei's eyes widened in sudden realization, her stiff corpse-like face displaying an incredulous expression. Difficult to what? Taihe pressed sternly. Xuemei replied, he very likely cultivated the Corpse King blood refinement technique, which is the exclusive skill of the blood wraith guards. Corpse King blood refinement technique? Taihe murmured softly. Xuemei nodded. The Corpse King blood refinement technique and the longevity technique are the 2 primary cultivation methods of the divine Bloodgate. Xuemei's words were somewhat reserved. The Corpse King blood refinement technique and longevity technique were not merely the 2 main cultivation methods of the divine Bloodgate. The divine Bloodgate had only ever had one primary method, which was the Corpse King rebirth technique that she yearned for. Taihe said, I've heard of the Corpse King blood refinement technique before. As for the longevity technique, it is the most widely circulated method in today's cultivation world. Aside from extending one's lifespan, I've never heard of any miraculous effects. Xuemei replied, isn't extending life miraculous enough? Isn't that what cultivators seek, longevity? Moreover, the methods for extending life circulating in the cultivation world are either insubstantial or as difficult to achieve as reaching the heavens. In comparison, cultivating the longevity technique is undoubtedly the easiest way to extend life. Taihe acknowledged, you make some valid points. However, I am now even more curious about your identity. How do you know so much about these ancient secrets? Xuemei replied, I came across an ancient notebook by chance which recorded some matters regarding the divine Bloodgate. A smile crept onto the corner of Taihe's mouth. Oh? Is that so? Since you understand the Hall of the Nether Gods so well, do you have a way to enter the inner hall without being affected by the ghostly mist? That junior who escaped is very important to me. I must capture him alive. Chapter 382. After Taihe exited the inner hall, the Nether Fox and Songwen stared at each other. Both of their gazes were filled with caution. Songwen dared not let the Nether Fox recover from its injuries. Once the Nether Fox healed, it would surely take his life. Meanwhile, the Nether Fox was worried that Songwen might seize the opportunity to launch a sneak attack while it was heavily wounded. Earlier, it had been severely injured by the formation in the outer hall. At that moment, its strength was almost non-existent. If it were caught off guard and attacked by Songwen, a Foundation Establishment cultivator, this late-stage beast could very well perish before him, especially since Songwen's lightning techniques were a strong counter against the Nether Fox. After a brief standoff, a female voice suddenly echoed in Songwen's mind, Human, I allow you to take refuge here. In exchange, you cannot attack me while I am healing. Songwen cupped his hands and replied, Thank you, Senior, you can rest assured, I will not disturb you. Hey, Human, do you think I would trust you so easily? What must I do for you to trust me, Senior? Songwen asked, Naturally, you must make a vow with your soul. You and I shall not attack each other in this Hall of the Nether Gods. Songwen nodded, agreed. Thus, both the human and the fox made their soul oaths. The Nether Fox closed its eyes, ignoring Songwen, and focused on recovering from its injuries. Songwen took out the formation plate he had seized from Xuemei and began to examine it closely. The plate was entirely blood-red, about the size of a human face, covered in intricate and profound array patterns. Songwon felt a bit troubled. He had worked hard to obtain the formation plate, yet he had no way to activate its power in his hands. The formation plate was essentially useless. Senior Nether Fox, you've been in this ancient hall for quite some time. Do you know where there are jade slips or techniques stored? Since this formation plate controlled the formations within the Hall of the Nether Gods, it was very likely that there were controlling techniques left behind. The Nether Fox's voice echoed in Songwen's mind, sounding quite disdainful. Human, do you think you can rely on the power of the formation to resist the two humans outside? I advise you to stop dreaming. The formations in this hall are extremely profound. With your cultivation level and the strength of your spiritual sense, you cannot possibly activate them. But Xue Mei, relying solely on her late-stage silver corpse body, was able to activate the formation. Why can't I? Songwen inquired. That person has an exceptionally strong soul force. She forcibly activated the formation using her soul power. She wasn't able to truly control the formation, not even bringing out a fraction of its power, the Nether Fox explained. Songwen couldn't help but feel a bit frustrated. Then the Nether Fox added, Human, holding on to that formation plate is useless. You might as well give it to me. A glint flashed in Songwen's eyes. Senior, you and I are currently on the same rope. You informing me of the controlling techniques is also a means of protecting your own life. The inner hall is filled with dense ghostly mist, and those two humans do not dare to approach. As long as I do not leave this inner hall, I will naturally be safe. But you, even though you can resist the erosion of the ghostly mist, cannot survive in it for long. In just a few days, you will become an emotionless wraith. At that time, you will no longer be the real you. If I then kill you and seize the formation plate, it would not be a breach of our vow. The Nether Fox's voice was filled with triumph. That was precisely why it had made a soul vow with Songwen to not attack each other. During the time that Songwen was slowly being eroded by the ghostly mist, it could heal itself. Songwen fixed a cold, harsh gaze on the Nether Fox. In this cultivation world, it seemed there were truly no kind-hearted beings. The humans were like this. And so were the beasts. However, Songwen was not without his own means. He had indeed made a soul oath to not attack the Nether Fox, but the vow did not specify that he couldn't help others capture the Nether Fox. Moreover, the Nether Fox was unaware of the enmity among Songwen, Xue Mei, and Tai He, which gave Songwen the opportunity to use the Nether Fox as leverage. Senior, I believe you can see that the people outside want to capture me alive at worst. I can step out of the inner hall and willingly become a prisoner, still able to survive. But you, Senior, are in a different situation. They will capture you to skin you and draw your bones. If I were to inform the people outside of your location, I believe that with a nascent soul cultivator's strength, once they know your position, they could easily take you down without even stepping into the inner hall. The Nether Fox scoffed. Human, you don't need to make empty threats. If you fall into their hands, you will likely wish for death. All it takes is to give it a try to see whether I'm making empty threats. I possess something they want, and as long as I cooperate with them honestly, they won't do anything to me. Songwen appeared relaxed, exuding an air of confidence. The Nether Fox suddenly grew furious. Human, despicable. Songwen smiled, likewise. The Nether Fox opened its mouth and a blood-red jade slip shot out, flying towards Songwen. I'll give you the controlling technique, but don't get too excited. As I mentioned before, with your cultivation level, it is utterly impossible for you to activate the formation. Songwen caught the blood-red jade slip. You don't need to worry about that. Songwen's spiritual sense penetrated into the jade slip. This jade slip was likely left behind by the people of the Hall of the Nether Gods. It recorded a formation known as the Blood Slaughter Sealing Formation. This formation was a level 4 array, possessing extremely strong offensive power. From the jade slip, Songwen also learned that the Blood Slaughter Sealing Formation was set up in the inner hall, outer hall, and the plaza. As long as he held the formation plate, he could activate the Blood Slaughter Sealing Formation. What the Nether Fox said was true. With Songwen's cultivation level, it would indeed be difficult for him to activate the Blood Slaughter Sealing Formation. Seeing the content in the jade slip, Songwen's mood sank further. Just as he thought he wouldn't find a way to escape in the jade slip, he discovered that the last part contained information about the origin of the ghostly mist in the Hall of the Nether Gods. The ghostly mist was summoned by the Hall of the Nether Gods at great expense, coming from the misty ghost realm outside the chaotic sea. Within the inner hall of the Nether Gods, there was a passage to the misty ghost realm. Or rather, there was a teleportation array leading to the Misty Ghost Realm. As long as he held the formation plate, he could activate the teleportation array to go to the Misty Ghost Realm. Song Wen's spirit lifted. He immediately rushed into the depths of the main hall. The area with the densest ghostly mist was where the teleportation array was located. At the deepest part of the inner hall, Song Wen indeed discovered a teleportation array. Human. You intend to use the teleportation array to go to the Misty Ghost Realm, don't you? The Nether Fox suddenly spoke. Song Wen replied, "That's exactly what I intend to do. Do you have any advice, Senior?" The Nether Fox warned, "I advise you to give up on that thought." "What do you mean by that, Senior?" Song Wen inquired. "This teleportation array connects to the Misty Ghost Realm, which is billions of miles away from here. Only high-grade spirit stones can activate this formation, and you will need a full 70 pieces. Even for a golden core cultivator, it's rare for anyone to carry so many high-grade spirit stones. Let alone you, a foundation establishment cultivator." Chapter 383. Thank you, Nether Fox, for the information. Song Wen casually remarked as his gaze began to assess the teleportation array. The teleportation array had a total of 72 slots around it. Just as the Nether Fox had said, these slots were meant for placing spirit stones. And they had to be high-grade spirit stones. In other words, activating this teleportation array required 720,000 low-grade spirit stones. Song Wen couldn't help but click his tongue. Such a quantity of spirit stones was enough to buy a decent magic treasure. The need for so many spirit stones to activate this teleportation array indicated that the distance it could transport someone was very far. A glimmer of joy flashed in his eyes. The farther the teleportation distance, the safer it would be. This way, it would be difficult for Taihe to track him. Song Wen immediately began checking his storage ring, and after a bit of counting, he found he had 89 high-grade spirit stones in total. Among them, 30 came from Yang Yu's rewards. The other 59 were obtained from the golden core cultivators he had killed and the top-tier foundation establishment cultivators with impressive backgrounds. With a wave of his hand, 72 high-grade spirit stones fell into the slots of the teleportation array. The Nether Fox watched this scene with a hint of surprise in its eyes. A mere foundation establishment cultivator actually carried so many high-grade spirit stones. Human, don't be too happy too soon. The other end of the teleportation array leads to the Misty Ghost Realm, which is filled with boundless ghost mist and countless vengeful spirits lurking within. Even if you manage to teleport, you'll only find yourself on a path to death. Song Wen ignored the Nether Fox and began to activate the blood-red array plate according to the controlling technique recorded in the Jade Slip. He had no way out, regardless of how dangerous the other side of the teleportation array might be. He had no choice but to teleport, as it was his only glimmer of hope. Taihe would definitely not let him go easily. Staying in the inner hall meant either Taihe would devise a method to resist the ghost mist and enter the inner hall to capture him, or he would be trapped in the inner hall for an extended period, gradually being eroded by the ghost mist and turning into a soulless, vengeful spirit. Under Song Wen's urging, the teleportation array gradually lit up with a green glow. Seeing Song Wen activate the array without hesitation, the Nether Fox realized that what Song Wen had said earlier about the people outside wanting to capture him alive was all a lie. The opponent had long since run out of options, otherwise he wouldn't have so decisively activated the teleportation array. Humans are indeed cunning, the Nether Fox muttered under its breath. At that moment, the stone door of the inner hall was pushed open again, revealing Taihe's figure at the entrance. He had learned from Xue Mei about a temporary method to resist the ghost mist. It was a technique called Spirit Bell Shield, originating from the Divine Blood Gate, which Xue Mei had obtained tens of thousands of years ago. The Spirit Bell Shield was a defensive spell that condensed a large bell made of spiritual power, enveloping the cultivator's entire body. This spell wasn't particularly profound but required a robust spiritual power to perform, making it only trainable for golden core cultivators. After acquiring the Spirit Bell Shield, Taihe pondered for a moment and, after several attempts, managed to condense a large bell. The bell was thin, giving a sense of instability. This was due to Taihe just beginning to practice the Spirit Bell Shield. Although the silver bell was frail, the inner hall was small, spanning only a few acres. The silver bell only needed to hold for a brief moment to allow Taihe to delve deeper into the inner hall and thoroughly search the entire area. It is worth mentioning that after Xuemei had surrendered the array plate, she lost her leverage against Taihe and had been captured by him. At this moment, she was trapped by Taihe's magical chains lying in a corner of the outer hall. Once Taihe entered the inner hall, the ghost mist surged like waves, continuously crashing against the silver bell. The bell flickered uncertainly, as if it could shatter at any moment. However, unlike the magical shields, which were quickly eroded by the ghost mist, the silver bell managed to block the mist effectively. Suddenly, in the depths of the inner hall, the blue light flared brilliantly, allowing Taihe to see clearly through the thick ghost mist. A sense of foreboding rose in Taihe's heart as he flickered into the deeper parts of the inner hall. Taihe pushed open the stone door of the inner hall and re-entered, immediately capturing the attention of Songwen and the nether fox. Songwen's pupils suddenly contracted and spiritual energy surged violently into the blood red array plate. All the runes of the teleportation array lit up, shining with blue light. The teleportation array activated instantly. Seeing Taihe returning, the nether fox also felt a pang of panic. Without a moment to think, it leapt with all its might at the last moment before the teleportation array activated. It entered the range of the array. Blue light surged toward the sky. It illuminated the inner hall, which was shrouded in dark ghost mist. The figures of Songwen and the nether fox vanished without a trace. Taihe rushed to the front of the teleportation array as the blue light began to gradually dissipate. Staring at the empty teleportation array, Taihe's expression darkened to an extreme, an invisible aura emanating from him. The surrounding ghost mist trembled as if buffeted by a violent wind, surging endlessly. After a few breaths, the silver bell suddenly swayed violently, showing signs of collapse. Only then did Taihe reluctantly turn around and exit the inner hall. He approached Xuemei, looking down at her lying on the ground. The teleportation array in the inner hall leads where? Taihe's voice was as cold as a blade, causing Xuemei to tremble involuntarily. With a somewhat panicked voice, she replied, "The teleportation array connects to the misty ghost realm outside the chaotic sea. I don't know how many billions of miles away. Between the chaotic sea and the Tianyuan continent lay an endless desert. Even a nascent soul cultivator, using all their speed, would take a year to reach the chaotic sea. Within the endless desert, there were various natural disasters. For example, there were gales that could kill nascent soul cultivators and scorching heat comparable to spiritual flames. Moreover, the endless desert lacked spiritual energy. If cultivators stayed there for too long, once their spirit stones and medicinal herbs were exhausted and they could not find an oasis rich in spiritual energy, their cultivation would inevitably regress. The endless desert was like a natural chasm separating the Tianyuan continent from the chaotic sea, making interactions between cultivators from both sides rare. Furthermore, the location the teleportation array connected to was not the chaotic sea itself, but rather the misty ghost realm beyond it. The misty ghost realm was situated over the vast ocean, perpetually shrouded in ghost mist, making it a forbidden zone for all living beings. Any creature that ventured into it would ultimately be eroded by the ghost mist, turning into a soulless, vengeful spirit, drifting endlessly within the mist. Taihe took out Songwen's soul lamp and performed a secret technique to probe Songwen's location. The flame of the soul lamp flickered slightly before returning to calm. The distance between them was too great, far exceeding the sensing range of the soul lamp. The soul lamp's response confirmed that Xuemei's words were not false. Clenching his hands tightly, a burning rage filled his eyes. As a dignified nascent soul cultivator, he had actually allowed a foundation establishment cultivator to escape right under his nose. Taihe's gaze was icy as he looked at Xuemei. It was clear that Songwen had been captured, and it was this woman who had used the nether fox to lure him, resulting in Songwen's escape. He unleashed his fury on Xuemei. "You deserve to die." Chapter 384. Xuemei's expression was one of panic as she hurriedly spoke. "What does that foundation establishment junior have that makes you a nascent soul powerhouse? Personally come to capture him." "That's none of your business," Taihe replied coldly, his killing intent palpable. With a vast momentum like raging waves sweeping forth, as Xuemei realized she was about to meet her end, she quickly raised her voice. "I am a nascent soul cultivator from the Blood Cloud Cave, a subordinate force of the Divine Blood Gate. Tens of thousands of years ago, I was destroyed in body and had my soul imprisoned within a soul statue made of soul-nurturing wood. I only recently escaped. Don't kill me. I know many secrets from tens of thousands of years ago, and I also have knowledge of many ancient techniques. Upon hearing this, Taihe's killing intent suddenly lessened, a hint of skepticism crossing his face. Are you really from the Divine Bloodgate? Xuanmei nodded vigorously. Absolutely, otherwise how could I know so much about the affairs of the Nether Shrine? Taihe pondered for a moment before speaking. Fine, I can spare your life, and I can even provide you with an excellent body for you to possess, but you must let go of your soul and allow me to plant the soul lock curse. Xuanmei asked, what kind of body? The profound Yin body. Fine, I'll let you plant the soul lock curse. Xuanmei clenched her fists tightly, her face filled with unwillingness. Fine. Taihe said with a smug smile, turning to walk out of the hall, with Xuanmei taking over Yan Yiwen's body and the soul lock curse controlling her. Ji Yin would no longer be significant, however. What Taihe failed to notice was that at the moment he turned to leave, a glint of sharpness flashed in Xuanmei's eyes. That glint was so piercing and bright, it seemed as if everything was already within Xuanmei's calculations. In the vast ocean, a rocky island stood abruptly. The sea wind howled, and waves surged, ceaselessly crashing against the rocks. The massive waves struck the rocks, breaking apart and creating countless white foam that splattered everywhere. Yet, this scene was shrouded in thick ghost mist, even though it was daytime. The surroundings remained dark and murky. Suddenly, a brilliant blue light erupted from the center of the island. Two figures materialized unexpectedly at the center of the island. They were Songwen and the Nether Fox, who had been teleported across billions of miles. Teleporting such a long distance left both the person and the fox feeling extremely uncomfortable. Both felt dizzy, their stomachs churning as they collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath after catching their breath. Songwen summoned the Ghost King, remaining vigilant towards the Nether Fox. Having left the Nether Shrine, the soul oath they had sworn to each other lost its binding power. The Nether Fox lowered its limbs to the ground, propping itself up and scanning the area, only to find no signs of life on the rocky island. Taking a deep breath, it inhaled the vast amount of ghost mist into its body. The Nether Fox felt an overwhelming sense of comfort, as if its internal injuries had recovered somewhat. This misty ghost realm was indeed the promised land for the Nether Fox. Glancing at Songwon, the Nether Fox's voice echoed in his mind. Human, you don't need to be on guard against me all the time. You have saved me twice, and I won't act as despicably as your humankind, nor will I repay kindness with malice. Songwon replied, I hope you will keep your word. The Nether Fox continued, Human, your body cannot last long in this ghost realm. It's best to leave as soon as possible. A bitter expression appeared on Songwen's face. He knew well that he could not remain in the misty ghost realm for long. However, he was completely unfamiliar with this domain, and with no sunlight to guide him, he had no idea where to go. If he chose the wrong direction, he could easily get lost in the endless ghost mist, unable to escape the misty ghost realm, ultimately becoming one of the countless vengeful spirits within. The Nether Fox raised a front paw, pointing in a direction to Songwen's right. I can sense that the chaotic sea is in this direction. Songwen looked at the Nether Fox with a surprised and doubtful expression. He wondered how the Nether Fox could discern direction in this ghost mist. Was it just talking nonsense? Or was there some truth to it? Why would it suddenly show such kindness and tell him the direction to the chaotic sea? Could it be true that, as the Nether Fox claimed, it was repaying a life-saving favor? He did not easily believe the Nether Fox's word. Songwen kept the Ghost King on guard against the Nether Fox and began to meticulously search the island, since a cultivator from the Divine Bloodgate had previously operated on this island. There must have been some traces left behind. Perhaps he could find the direction to the chaotic sea among them. The rocky island was only a few square miles in size. The ghost mist exerted a strong suppressive effect on his spiritual sense. Thus, Songwon could only rely on his eyesight to slowly search the island. Unfortunately, the island was dark and visibility was extremely poor, making his progress slow. After a quarter of an hour, he discovered an underground entrance in one corner of the rocky island. The entrance extended inward for several meters, leading to a cave about an acre in size. Songwen speculated that this cave should be the residence of the Divine Blood Gate disciples who had once guarded this island. In one corner of the cave, he found a pile of dry bones. Among the bones, there was a storage ring. To Songwen's disappointment, due to the passage of too much time, the storage ring had lost its spirit. Its storage space had long since collapsed, and the items inside had long been erased. However, He found a few lines of engraved small characters on the blue stone ground beneath the bones. The content recorded this person's life and death. This person was originally a disciple of the Nether Shrine, tasked with guarding the teleportation array at this location one day. He encountered a powerful vengeful spirit and was injured by it. His injuries were severe, and he could no longer save himself. He tried various methods to contact his fellow disciples in the endless desert and the chaotic sea, but he received no response at all. It was as if he and the teleportation array had been abandoned by the Nether Shrine in the end. He perished here. At the end of these lines of small characters, it mentioned 30,000 miles to the east, beyond the misty ghost realm, there is an island where disciples of the Nether Shrine are stationed. This person hoped that whoever discovered his remains would deliver them to the Nether Shrine, which would surely reward them handsomely, considering that this place was shrouded in darkness, making it impossible to discern direction. The person drew an arrow pointing in a direction after the text. The direction indicated by the arrow was exactly opposite to the direction the Nether Fox had pointed out. Song when spirits lifted. The information left by this person was more credible than the information provided by the Nether Fox. He turned around and exited the cave, calling back the Ghost King that had been monitoring the Nether Fox, instructing it to lead the way in front, and he soared into the air on his sword, intending to depart in the direction indicated by the arrow. The Nether Fox watched in surprise as Song when suddenly left. "Human, you've chosen the wrong direction. If you go that way, you'll only delve deeper into the misty ghost realm and ultimately get lost in the vast ghost mist." It warned Song when turned to glance at the Nether Fox but did not respond, urging his flying sword to vanish into the dense ghost mist. The Nether Fox stared at the spot where Song when had disappeared for a while, its expression full of hesitation. Ultimately, it did not pursue Song when its injuries were too severe, and it was not confident it could take down Song when. Moreover, it realized that this misty ghost realm was much more suitable for survival and cultivation than the Nether Shrine in the endless desert. The formation plate was of no great use to it anymore. It was not worth risking its life to chase down Song One for a useless item. However, it was somewhat puzzled about how the human had suddenly found the correct direction. The Nether Fox could sense the exact direction within the ghost mist due to their innate talent. Could it be that the human discovered something in that cave? The Nether Fox speculated as it entered the cave. It found the cave quite decent and decided to claim it as its own. Settling in. Chapter 385. After passing through the misty ghost realm outside the chaotic sea, Song when no longer worried about Tai He pursuing him. Between the chaotic sea and the Tianyuan continent lies the endless desert. The chances of Tai He crossing the incredibly dangerous endless desert to hunt him down are minimal. Therefore, he no longer needed the soul concealment jade naturally. He did not have to fight desperately against the Nether Fox. In the misty ghost realm, visibility was obstructed, and his spiritual sense was suppressed, so Song when had to proceed cautiously. Suddenly, a piercing shriek pierced the air. The mist on his left surged, and a tentacle broke through the ghost mist, reaching towards Song One. This tentacle was incorporeal, resembling a ghostly entity. It was a unique life form of the misty ghost realm, the vengeful spirit. Caught off guard by this sudden change, Song One was startled. However, he quickly calmed down, realizing that the aura emanating from this tentacle was not strong, only at the early second stage. Just as he was about to activate his thunder technique to destroy it, he hesitated. Although the thunder technique restrains ghostly beings, it makes a lot of noise, and Song When feared it would attract other vengeful spirits. He dodged the incoming tentacle and commanded the Ghost King to attack the vengeful spirit. The battle ended swiftly. The vengeful spirit was no match for them and was defeated under Song Wen's instruction. The Ghost King didn't kill the vengeful spirit but merely wounded it. As Song Wen approached the vengeful spirit, he could see its full appearance. It was an octopus-like vengeful spirit, likely transformed from a sea monster eroded by the ghost mist. Looking at the soul body of the vengeful spirit, an idea suddenly popped into Song Wen's mind. Both human and beast souls could be absorbed by the black hole of the consciousness sea. I wonder if this vengeful spirit can be absorbed too. Thinking of this, Song Wen placed one hand on the soul body of the vengeful spirit in the consciousness sea. A massive black hole suddenly appeared. A powerful suction force emanated from Songwen's body, pulling the vengeful spirit in rapidly. Songwen's eyes lit up. The vengeful spirit could indeed be absorbed. This meant he had gained another method to deal with vengeful spirits. Perhaps his luck was good, as he did not encounter any other vengeful spirits on his journey. As he continued to move forward, he noticed that the ghost mist gradually became thinner slowly. A sun appeared in the sky. The sun looked dim, shrouded by the thick ghost mist that obscured too much light. Songwen's expression brightened. The appearance of the sun meant that he was headed in the right direction. With the ghost mist becoming even thinner, the light around him gradually brightened, and the suppression on his spiritual sense weakened suddenly. The ghost mist vanished. Golden sunlight fell upon the sea, sparkling with light. The sea breeze stirred the waves, and the spray shone brilliantly in the sunlight, crystal clear. The salty air carried a faint trace of spiritual energy. Songwen had entered the territory of the chaotic sea. After a brief moment of joy, he discovered a new problem. Looking around, he found that there were no islands visible across the vast ocean. In the boundary between the chaotic sea and the misty ghost realm, the number of islands was extremely few, comparable to oases in the endless desert. Although Songwen had the corpse king blood refining technique, which helped him resist much of the ghost mist's erosion, he still integrated a considerable amount of ghost energy into his body at this moment. He urgently needed to cultivate diligently and expel all the ghost energy within him. Otherwise, over time, the residual ghost energy would undoubtedly affect the foundation of his cultivation. Songwen continued to head east toward the island where the corpse was said to be located. 2 hours later, an island measuring more than 10 miles in circumference appeared before Songwen. On the island, lush green trees thrived, full of life and abundant spiritual energy. Songwen flew over the island, hovering in the air, looking down at the entire island. With his mouth slightly open, 6 sacred gusts flew out, his spiritual sense extended, and the entire island came within Songwen's perception. On the island, there were no signs of human activity, but a group of flying birds and beasts were living there. This was a group of flying beasts resembling pterosaurs, known as Feiyun beasts. Their strongest cultivation level was only at the early 2nd stage, posing no threat to Songwen. Tilen, Feiyun literally means flying cloud beasts, but since that's a mouthful, I will use Feiyun. Search pterosaurs on Google to see images. At the highest point in the center of the island, Songwen discovered some remnants of ruins, likely left by the underworld temple tens of thousands of years ago. He did not disturb the Feiyun beasts. Instead, he quietly landed in the center of the island and cleared out a temporary cave dwelling beneath the ruins. He set up the 9 palaces in array and the spirit gathering isolation array. After thinking for a moment, he felt that relying solely on these 2 second-tier arrays in a strange place was not safe, so he also set up the Yin-Yang 4 symbol formation. The Yin-Yang 4 symbol formation came from the Su family and was a formation left by the Su family's ancestor, Su Qian, in the valley where he secluded himself. This formation was a 3rd-tier array capable of both offense and defense, but it consumed a significant amount of spirit stones. Songwen did not activate this array immediately, he merely laid it down as a precaution. Afterward, he also set up a 2nd-tier spirit gathering array among the 3 arrays. Once he had fed the 6 sacred gusts, he instructed them to stand guard around the island. He took out a mat, sat cross-legged, and began to operate the corpse king blood refining technique to expel the ghost energy from his body. Time flew by in the blink of an eye. 3 months passed, all the ghost energy within Songwen had been completely expelled. He opened the array, exited the cave dwelling, and stood at the peak of the island beneath a tall tree. Everything around him came into view. A late-stage 1st tier Feiyun beast was hunting at the shallows. A large fish measuring about 10 feet long was killed instantly as the Feiyun beast pierced its skull with its sharp claws. Fresh blood stained the surface of the sea. The Feiyun beast firmly grasped the large fish, and with a flap of its wings, it took to the air. At that moment, the surface of the sea suddenly surged. A massive fish fin broke through the water's surface, and a giant fish measuring 10 feet long leaped out of the sea, biting the Feiyun beast's legs. The Feiyun beast barely had time to react before being dragged into the water. It struggled desperately, flapping its wings and splashing waves that reached several feet high. However, the Feiyun beast's struggles were in vain. It was consumed by the fish. The clash between the Feiyan beast and the sea beast made Songwen feel that the island was so peaceful and harmonious. From the sacred Gus, he learned that during his 3 months of seclusion, no human cultivators had passed through this area, nor had any powerful beasts come here. This island was practically a paradise of peace, untouched by strife. The only downside was that the spiritual energy in this place was somewhat thin. It was precisely because the spiritual energy was scarce that powerful beasts did not occupy this area. What Songwen lacked most was spirit stones and spiritual materials. He still had about 30,000 spirit stones on him, enough to cultivate for a long time. Songwen decided to temporarily stay on this island to cultivate diligently for a while, hoping to condense a golden pill before leaving. The external sea of the chaotic sea was filled with beasts, making it unsafe to traverse with his foundation-building cultivation. The most important spiritual item for assisting in golden pill formation was the golden core itself. Songwen had already gathered all the spiritual herbs needed for refining the golden pill, and he had 4 sets. He planned to attempt refining the golden pill himself. As for the barrier-breaking pill required for the heart tribulation, Songwen had no close relatives and could not refine it. However, before leaving the Beastmaster sect, he had purchased 10 life-forging pills. These pills had effects for awakening the mind and focusing the spirit, providing some assistance for crossing the heart tribulation. But compared to the barrier-breaking pill, their effect was undoubtedly inferior. Most cultivators took these pills to help them cross the heart tribulation when forming a golden core. Songwen returned to the cave dwelling, lit the furnace, and prepared to start refining pills. The flame he used for this pill refining was generated by his spiritual power. After practicing the supreme fire control true secret, his fire control skill had improved significantly, enabling him to use his spiritual power flames to refine pills. However, for his first time using spiritual power flames to refine pills, Songwen did not have much confidence. He had not attempted to refine the golden pill directly. Instead, he practiced refining familiar second-tier pills like the Essence Nurturing Elixir and Beast Refining Pill to get accustomed to the characteristics of the spiritual power flames. Spiritual power flames were purer than flames produced by burning spiritual wood, making them more suitable for refining higher difficulty pills. After half a year of continuous practice, Songwen's fire control technique had noticeably improved, and he could now command the spiritual power flames as if they were an extension of himself. After resting for 2 days, Songwen took out the jade slip containing the insights of previous predecessors from the Beastmaster sect on refining the golden pill and combined them with his observations of Fangpingyi's memories of refining the golden pill to reflect deeply on them. After a month, Songwen had simulated the entire pill refining process in his mind no less than 10 times. After further calming his mind for half a month, he adjusted his state to the best conditions. Songwen activated the spiritual power flames and opened the furnace to begin refining the golden pill. Chapter 386. The process of refining the golden pill involves numerous spiritual herbs and is complex, but Songwen proceeded with each refining step methodically, confident and organized. The flames of spiritual power were precisely controlled, sometimes vigorous, sometimes dim. The temperature inside the furnace was consistently maintained within an appropriate range. One after another, spiritual herbs were continuously added to the furnace. Drops of liquid containing the essence of the herbs were extracted. After half a month, Songwen added a 200-year-old Inyang blood weeping branch into the furnace. The Inyang blood weeping branch was the most crucial main ingredient for the golden pill, and also the last herb to be added under the appropriate temperature for quenching. The vital energy of heaven and earth contained in the Inyang blood weeping branch was extracted. This vital energy began to gradually merge with the liquid extracted earlier. Once the fusion was complete, Songwen could attempt the final step, condensing the pill. Just as the two were about to merge into one with a bang, the furnace shook, and wisps of black smoke billowed out. The furnace exploded. This was the first failure in refining the golden pill. Songwen's expression remained calm, showing no signs of disturbance. He had made no mistakes in his control during the refining process, yet the pill had still failed. It could only be said that he had not completely grasped the key points of refining the golden pill. There were errors in the refining method he had initially envisioned. He closed his eyes, recalling his refining technique just before the explosion. and compared it with the insights from the jade slip and Fangping's refining experiences to identify his mistakes. A month later, Songwen opened the furnace again. This time, during the final step of condensing the pill, the effort came to naught. Another month passed. Songwen opened the furnace for the third time. After a lengthy 20 days of refining, suddenly, a soft crisp sound emerged from the furnace. It was the sound of the pill taking shape and falling to the bottom of the furnace. After nearly a year of preparation and refining, the golden pill had finally been successfully produced. Songwen couldn't help but feel joy on his face as he waved his hand to open the furnace lid, and a golden pill flew out, landing in the jade bottle he had prepared in advance. Perhaps due to the first successful refinement of the golden pill, he had only obtained one pill. This was fewer than the 2 to 3 pills that should have been produced in one batch according to the insights in the jade slip. He did not stop refining the golden pill there. Another month later, Songwen opened the furnace again. This time, the Inyang blood weeping branch he used was the oldest one, nearly 500 years old. With the experience of the first successful refinement of the golden pill, this time it was much easier. He just needed to follow the steps. 20 days later, Songwen was filled with joy as he successfully refined the golden pill again, producing 3 pills. This time, after storing the golden pills in the jade bottle, Songwen opened the array's restrictions and ended this period of seclusion. He concealed his aura, avoiding flying beasts and monsters, and lived in seclusion on the island for half a year. During these 6 months, he lived like a mortal. He would go out at sunrise, searching for ingredients on the island to fill his belly. At sunset, he would return to the cave dwelling to rest. The reason he did this was that he had read in a notebook left by a predecessor in the Beastmaster secta saying, absolute cultivation must return to the foundation of human survival, which may assist in tempering one's character and dispelling the threat of heart tribulation. Songwen was unsure whether the saying was correct. Perhaps even the one who left the saying does not know. He considered these 6 months a rare relaxation since stepping into the world of cultivation. Having spent 6 months without cultivating or using spiritual power, he still gained something. It helped stabilize the spiritual power within him, which could be seen as an unexpected benefit. Then, Songwen entered closed-door training again. This time for 3 years. During these 3 years, he continuously tempered the spiritual power within his body and his physical form, aiming to reach a perfect state to attempt condensing the golden pill. One day, the sun was shining brightly, a gentle sea breeze was blowing. The Feiyan beasts caught several giant sea beasts and feasted as a clan. However, while the Feiyan beasts were eating, a rodent-like monster sneaked into their cliffside nest, stealing 3 eggs and 1 chick. The monsters on the island displayed their powers, all managing to acquire food. Everything on the island appeared harmonious. It seemed even the heavens and earth were indicating that today was a good day for pill condensing. Songwen arranged 4 high-grade spiritual stones around the array formation of the spirit-gathering array. The pure spiritual energy within the stones was forcibly drawn out by the formation, causing the concentration of spiritual energy in the cave to surge. However, this was still not enough. He took out several thousand low-grade spiritual stones, using the Ghost King and Silver Corpse to smash them all. The concentration of spiritual energy in the cave increased once more. Songwen crossed his legs and took out a bottle of 10,000-year spiritual liquid. Tilting his head back to take a big gulp, the 10,000-year spiritual liquid entered his stomach and transformed into a continuous stream of pure spiritual energy for Songwen to absorb, operating the longevity technique. The spiritual energy was gradually refined and integrated into his meridians. The spiritual power flowed through Songwen's limbs and bones like a rolling flood. Eventually, it converged in his dantian. Within Songwen's dantian, the spiritual power from the longevity technique and the Corpse King blood refining technique, each condensed into a vortex of spiritual power, clearly defined, 1 yin and 1 yang, 1 black and 1 white, resembling the 8 trigrams constantly rotating within the dantian. This refined spiritual power began to merge into the vortex of the longevity technique. The capacity of the vortex of the longevity technique reached its limit. As the refined spiritual power found no place to settle, it started to slowly dissipate. Songwen's expression grew serious as he continued to refine the spiritual energy provided by the 10,000-year spiritual liquid. Qualitative changes arise from quantitative changes. As the spiritual power within Song Wen accumulated more and more, the spiritual power from the longevity technique gradually began to transform into magical power. Soon, half a year passed, Song Wen had completely refined a whole bottle of 10,000-year spiritual liquid. All the spiritual power from the longevity technique transformed into magical power. Next was the second step of condensing the core, converting magical power into the golden core. With a thought, a jade bottle appeared before him. The bottle cap opened, a golden pill flew out on its own, landing in Song Wen's mouth. As the golden pill entered his stomach, the vital energy of heaven and earth contained within it erupted violently. This vital energy rapidly surged into the Dantian, merging with the magical power cultivated from the longevity technique. The magical power gradually began to condense, forming a golden pellet the size of a sesame seed. As soon as the golden pellet appeared, it quickly began to draw in the magical power from the Dantian, wanting to strengthen itself and form a true golden core. Just then, the vortex of spiritual power from the Corpse King blood refining technique in the Dantian suddenly trembled violently, as if the balance of yin and yang had been disrupted. The vortex of spiritual power lost its restraint over the magical power, and the black spiritual power from the Corpse King blood refining technique erupted violently, pouring out and filling the entire Dantian. The golden pellet that had just condensed was suddenly contaminated by the impurities in the Corpse King blood refining technique and collapsed unexpectedly. The Dantian shook. A sharp pain surged from within the Dantian. Poof. Song Wen spat out a mouthful of fresh blood, staining his chest. Chapter 387. Song Wen quickly activated the longevity technique to calm the chaotic magical power in his Dantian. 3 hours later, the magical power from the longevity technique gradually returned to tranquility. Song Wen then operated the Corpse King blood refining technique to soothe the turbulent spiritual power from the Corpse King blood refining technique. 1 hour later, the spiritual power from the Corpse King blood refining technique also returned to calmness. Both powers reformed into two swirling vortices, continuously rotating within the Dantian. Song Wen opened his eyes. His gaze was filled with gloom. The golden core formation had failed. The reason for the failure was that the balance of the two spiritual power vortices had been disrupted. What was strange, however, was that the magical power from the longevity technique in his Dantian did not revert to spiritual power due to the failure in condensing the pill. It remained as magical power within the Dantian. This was completely different from what was described in the experiences of previous practitioners in the Beastmaster sect. The process of condensing a core is divided into 3 steps. First, the spiritual power is transformed into magical power. Second, the magical power condenses into a golden core. Third, one must pass the heart tribulation to advance to the golden core realm. Any failure in any of these steps would cause the magical power to revert to spiritual power, even if the second step was successfully completed and the golden core was condensed. If one failed to pass the heart tribulation, the best outcome would be that the golden core would disintegrate, and one's cultivation would regress to the peak of the foundation establishment stage. In Song Wen's current situation, he had completed the first step, with the spiritual power from the longevity technique now transformed into magical power. What stage does my current realm represent? Is it the false core stage? Half a gold core stage? Song Wen pondered to himself, after reviewing the entire core condensing process. A bitter expression appeared on Song Wen's face. The two spiritual power vortices in his Dantian were pulling against each other to condense the core. He must merge the two into one before proceeding to condense the golden core. The longevity technique and the Corpse King blood refining technique originated from the Corpse King's transformation technique. Cultivating the Corpse King's transformation technique would allow him to fuse the two spiritual power vortices in his Dantian into one. However, the Corpse King blood refining technique had not been cultivated for many years. He was currently only at the initial stage of foundation establishment. He needed to cultivate it to the peak of the foundation establishment stage to match the realm of the longevity technique before he could practice the Corpse King's transformation technique and condense the golden pill. Having clarified the path of cultivation ahead, Song Wen exited his cave and rested for several days to alleviate the frustration from his failed pill condensing before entering closed-door training again. He acquired a large amount of corpse demon spiritual materials from Fong Pengyi, enough for him to cultivate from the initial stage to the peak of foundation establishment several times. The only thing lacking was blood essence. If he could obtain a large quantity of blood essence to consume, directly absorbing the vitality from others, the speed of cultivating the Corpse King blood refining technique would increase significantly. After betraying the Corpse Demon sect and entering the righteous cultivation world, he had killed numerous cultivators. He absorbed the blood essence from these cultivators, but he did not dare to cultivate the Corpse King blood refining technique in the righteous cultivation world, resulting in the blood essence. Having no place to go, he had forced out most of the blood essence from his body and stored it away. However, the blood essence currently in Song Wen's possession was insufficient for him to reach the peak of foundation establishment. Time passed. In the blink of an eye, 10 years had gone by. With ample blood essence and corpse demon spiritual materials, Song Wen cultivated the Corpse King blood refining technique to the late foundation establishment stage. At this point, he had exhausted all the blood essence he had, significantly slowing his cultivation speed. After a year of arduous practice, the progress of the Corpse King blood refining technique only slightly improved. Song Wen estimated that at his current cultivation speed, it would take at least 30 to 40 years to cultivate the Corpse King blood refining technique to the peak of foundation establishment. One day, Song Wen finished his closed-door training and exited the cave. He saw the Feiyun beasts hunting. Sea beasts. Song Wen's mind suddenly flashed with inspiration. Perhaps I can capture some sea beasts to provide blood essence for consumption. Although the blood essence of beast kind is not as potent as that of humans, as long as the quantity is sufficient, it can still help my cultivation advance quickly. Looking at the vast ocean, Song Wen did not rashly attempt to capture a sea beast. The chaotic sea was divided into the inner and outer seas. There were no obvious boundaries between the inner sea and the outer sea. The inner sea was closer to the continent, with numerous islands, frequent human activity, and humans occupying a dominant position, while the beasts were relatively weaker. The outer sea, on the other hand, belonged to the deep sea region, with few islands and little human activity. It was the domain of various powerful sea beasts. It is worth mentioning that the area of the outer sea is countless times larger than that of the inner sea. The island where Song Wen was located was on the edge of the chaotic sea and was part of the outer sea. He had been cultivating on this island for 16 years without encountering any dangers. However, this did not mean that the waters below the surface were safe. Perhaps lurking somewhere in the nearby deep sea were third, or even fourth-level sea beasts. Song Wen dared not recklessly dive into the water to capture sea beasts. He turned his gaze to the Feiyun beasts that were preying on the surface of the sea. These Feiyun beasts could be useful laborers, but how to enslave them posed a challenge. After pondering for a moment, Song Wen decided to first send 2 sacred gu to infiltrate the nests of the Feiyun beasts to gather information about their situation. The nests of the Feiyun beasts were constructed from branches and leaves, resembling giant bird nests, built on a 100-foot-high cliff on the western side of the island. There were hundreds of nests, housing over 1,000 Feiyun beasts of various sizes. At the top of the cliff was a huge bird's nest about 2 zhang wide. The largest of all the nests. In this bird's nest lived only one Feiyun beast. It was 10 feet long, with a wingspan of nearly 30 feet, making it the largest and strongest among the Feiyun beasts. This Feiyun beast possessed early second-level strength, being the only one in the group to have advanced to the second level at that moment. A peak first-level Feiyun beast flapped its wings and flew towards the top of the cliff in its claws. It held a fat sea fish over a foot long flying above the largest bird's nest. It released its grip. The sea fish fell, landing in the largest nest, causing it to tremble as if it would collapse. The early second-level Feiyun beast raised its claws and slashed at the fish's belly. The fish was immediately cut open, revealing its crimson innards. The second-level Feiyun beast opened its sharp beak and probed into the fish's belly. After a bout of tearing, the fish's innards were pulled out. The Feiyun beast feasted, devouring the most vital part, the fish's innards, with a gentle scrape of its claws. The fish's carcass rolled out of the nest and fell towards the cliff below. From the nests below, dozens of Feiyun beasts flew out. Some were larger, some smaller, including the one that had caught the fish, and they began to compete for the fish's remains. About 15 minutes later, another Feiyun beast captured a prey, a huge crab. The crab was also thrown into the nest of the second-level Feiyun beast, however. For some reason, the second-level Feiyun beast did not eat any part of the crab and simply tossed it off the cliff once again. This attracted many first-level Feiyun beasts to fight over it. The second-level Feiyun beast was clearly the king among this group of Feiyun beasts. All prey captured by the Feiyun beasts had to be offered first to the second-level beast, with the remaining parts given to the other Feiyun beasts. Chapter 388. Night fell. Two sacred gu stealthily entered the nest of the Feiyun beast king. For the past 16 years, the sacred gu had received ample supplies of beast essence pills, and Song-won would occasionally feed them meatballs. The strength of the sacred gu had grown rapidly, and they had all advanced to the late foundation establishment stage. The Feiyun beast king, deep in slumber, suddenly awoke when it saw the two sacred gu, which were far stronger than itself, abruptly appear before it. It felt a surge of panic. Chirp! Startled, the Feiyun beast king emitted a piercing cry. The cry echoed across half the island. Countless weak beasts and ordinary birds fled in all directions. Hundreds of Feiyun beasts were disturbed, flapping their wings and flying towards the top of the cliff. The Feiyun beast king's cry suddenly stopped at that moment. While it was calling out, the two sacred gu took the opportunity to burrow into its mouth, following its throat deep into its abdomen, realizing that these two tiny insects were beings it could not provoke. The Feiyun beast king did not dare to call out again. Fearing to provoke the wrath of the sacred gu, it crouched in its nest, trembling all over. In its huge bird-like eyes was only fear, as if it had encountered a natural enemy at that moment. Hundreds of Feiyun beasts had surrounded the nest of the Feiyun beast king. With their low intelligence, the Feiyun beasts did not notice any enemy and saw that their leader was unharmed, so they gradually dispersed, returning to their respective nests. One sacred gu crawled out from the abdomen of the Feiyun beast king, flapping its wings as it flew towards Song-wen's cave. After flying a few zhang, it suddenly stopped, looking back at the Feiyun beast king. The Feiyun beast king trembled all over. Too afraid to move in its nest, the sacred gu flew a few more zhang. Noticing that the Feiyun beast king still remained crouched in its nest, not following, it suddenly turned and rushed toward the Feiyun beast king. The sacred gu crashed into the Feiyun beast king's hard skull. The massive impact caused the Feiyun beast king to feel a splitting headache and dizziness. It realized that the sacred gu had not continued its attack but had instead flown out a few zhang, hovering in the air as if waiting for it to catch up. At that moment, a sudden cramp in its abdomen made it aware that the sacred gu inside was gnawing at its innards. The excruciating pain jolted the Feiyun beast king awake from its stupor. It stood up, shook its wings, and leaped out of the nest. It followed the guiding sacred gu, flying a few zhang. The cramping pain in its abdomen immediately disappeared. The Feiyun beast king realized that these two powerful insects wanted it to follow them, not daring to resist. It trailed behind the guiding sacred gu toward the center of the island. As soon as the Feiyun beast king landed on the remnants of a crumbling wall, a powerful array of light suddenly activated, trapping it inside the 6-hexagram demon-locking array. Song-wen's figure appeared within the formation. He employed the spirit beast contract technique acquired from the Beastmaster sect, intending to forcibly sign a spirit beast contract with the Feiyun beast king. The Feiyun beast king wanted to resist. Suddenly, it felt a sharp pain in its abdomen, and Song-wen's powerful spiritual sense burst forth, instantly waking it up. The person before it was someone it could not oppose. If it did not sign the contract, death awaited it. The contract with the Feiyun beast king was smoothly completed, taking no more than a quarter of an hour. After the contract was finalized, Song-wen could communicate simply with the Feiyun beast king through spiritual sense. Song-wen made only one request of the Feiyun beast king. All prey captured in the future must be gathered and piled at the cliff top. Only after Song-wen devoured the souls and vital blood of the beasts could the remaining carcasses be provided for the Feiyun beasts to eat. Furthermore, starting today, the Feiyun beast king could no longer stay in its nest waiting for the other Feiyun beasts to provide for it. It must go out daily to capture prey. In general, the relationship between a spirit beast and its master is one of equal reciprocity. The master provides resources to the spirit beast, and in return, the spirit beast serves its master. A master cannot force a spirit beast to do something it does not want to do. However, in Song-wen's case, the Feiyun beast king was undoubtedly on the side of being exploited and enslaved with no equality in sight. Despite this, the Feiyin Beast King did not dare to resist in the slightest. It was extremely obedient, following Song Wen's every command. As the only second-tier Feiyin Beast, the Feiyin Beast King held high prestige within its clan. With the help of the Feiyin Beast King, Song Wen controlled the entire Feiyin Beast tribe. From then on, every evening as the sun set, Song Wen would appear on time at the cliff top to devour the accumulated blood and souls of the sea beasts. His cultivation speed received a tremendous boost. However, this brought hardship to the Feiyin Beast tribe, having their essence blood devoured and their corpses consumed by Song Wen. They lost almost all of their blood essence, and the spiritual power contained in their bodies was reduced by more than half. Furthermore, the taste was extremely poor, with a waxy texture. As time went on, the population of the Feiyin Beast tribe gradually began to dwindle. With the essence blood of the sea beasts, Song Wen's cultivation made rapid progress. 13 years later, Song Wen was diligently cultivating in his cave. Suddenly, the spiritual energy vortex of the Corpse King blood refining technique suddenly expanded by more than double. The spiritual energy within the vortex also became thicker and more condensed. The Corpse King blood refining technique broke through to the peak of the foundation establishment stage. Song Wen continued to cultivate hard in his cave for another 6 months to stabilize his cultivation before ending his closed-door training. Song Wen felt greatly pleased. He was one step closer to forming the golden core when he stepped out of the cave. He found that there were fewer than 100 Feiyin beasts left. This was still after nearly 2 years of time during which Song Wen had been in closed-door training to break through to the peak of foundation establishment, allowing the Feiyin beasts to recover. If Song Wen had delayed a few more years in breaking through to the peak of foundation establishment, the Feiyin beast tribe might have faced extinction in the next 5 years. Except for occasionally refining pills, Song Wen spent nearly all his time comprehending the Corpse King rebirth technique in preparation for forming the Golden Core. The Corpse King rebirth technique was divided into 2 parts, the Corpse King blood refining technique and the longevity technique. With his understanding of the Corpse King blood refining technique and the longevity technique, Song Wen found it particularly smooth to comprehend the Corpse King rebirth technique. After 5 years of understanding, while he didn't fully grasp all the essentials of the Corpse King rebirth technique, he had comprehended it to a considerable degree. During this period, the cultivation of the Corpse King blood refining technique slowly stabilized. One day, Song Wen entered closed-door training again, aiming to break through to the Golden Core realm. Before this, he had already given it much thought, clarifying the entire process of forming the Golden Core. First, he needed to convert the spiritual energy of the Corpse King blood refining technique into magical power. Next, he would operate the Corpse King rebirth technique, combining the magical power of the longevity technique and the Corpse King blood refining technique into one. Then, he would take the Golden Core pill to condense the Golden Core. Finally, he would face the heart tribulation with the experience from the previous longevity technique. Converting the spiritual energy of the Corpse King blood refining technique into magical power was particularly smooth, taking only 4 months. Once this step was completed, the cultivation of the Corpse King blood refining technique and the longevity technique truly reached a balance in his Dantian. Song Wen immediately began to operate the Corpse King rebirth technique. Chapter 389. The Corpse King blood refining technique and the longevity technique both cultivate magical power that shares the same root and source as the Corpse King rebirth technique. The conversion of the techniques was extremely smooth. At the moment of operating the Corpse King rebirth technique, the 2 magical power vortices in the Dantian were simultaneously activated. The 2 vortices continuously approached each other. The 2 opposing vortices suddenly collided together. However, upon impact, there was no oscillation in the Dantian. Instead, they smoothly began to merge. Days passed. The 2 magical power vortices completely fused into one, not resisting each other. Song Wen slightly opened his mouth and swallowed a Golden Core pill. The essence of heaven and earth contained within the Golden Core pill surged into his Dantian as the magical power vortex merged. A golden bean-sized pellet coalesced. This was the embryo of the Golden Core. Under the operation of the Corpse King rebirth technique, the golden pellet began to absorb the magical power within the Dantian. Every time the magical power circulated a full cycle within his body, The golden pellet grew larger gradually. Golden light emanated from Song Wen's body, resembling a celestial being descended to the mortal realm. The golden light grew increasingly bright, illuminating the entire cave in a golden glow. Inside the cave, the spirit-gathering array continuously drew out the spiritual energy from the high-grade spirit stones, filling the entire cave with pure spiritual energy. Song Wen greedily absorbed the surrounding spiritual energy, which was refined by the Corpse King rebirth technique into magical power, flowing into his dantian months later. A dazzling golden pellet coalesced, spinning continuously. The golden core resembled the rising sun, casting a radiant glow throughout the dantian. Within the golden core flowed immense magical power, coursing through Song Wen's meridians, limbs, and bones. Under the tempering of the magical power, Song Wen's physical body gradually began to strengthen. His appearance constantly shifted between that of a 1,000-year-old corpse and a living person. Finally, he transformed into a bizarre image, with the left side resembling an old corpse and the right side a living person. The rhythm of life and the lament of death were simultaneously manifested in him. Suddenly Song Wen sensed that in the mysterious depths, a powerful and obscure aura quietly descended. Like the irresistible force of the heavenly way, in an instant, the entire realm began to distort and reshape before his eyes. The world transformed in the blink of an eye. He found himself in a vast void. Surrounding him were densely packed hundreds of thousands of people. Among these people, there were men and women, old and young. They all appeared ashen, their faces pale and lifeless, resembling standing corpses. These people stared at Song Wen with lifeless eyes, fixedly watching him. In their gazes, there was resentment, sadness, hatred, and a thirst for blood. So many people gathered together, yet they emitted not a single sound. Not even the sound of breathing could be heard. All Song Wen could hear was the beating of his own heart. Thump, thump, thump. In that moment, it was as if Song Wen forgot he was a cultivator, forgetting everything about cultivation. A chilling sense of oppression rose in his heart, like a heavy burden weighing down on him, making it difficult to breathe. He wanted to roar, to break the silence surrounding him, but found that his throat felt locked, unable to produce a sound. The crowd began to move, slowly advancing toward Song Wen, like a wall of people closing in on him. There were simply too many people jostling and crowding together. These people were incredibly fragile. Some had their heads crushed, some had their arms torn off, and others had their legs squashed. Severed limbs littered the ground soon after. The latecomers trampled over them, turning them into mush and blood. Such a horrifying scene made Song Wen's forehead drip with cold sweat, and his body trembled involuntarily. He wanted to escape, but there were people all around, leaving him nowhere to run. He wanted to resist, but he was utterly powerless. Song Wen felt incredibly small, a profound sense of helplessness and fear flooding his heart. A wave of despair began to spread. He felt as if his soul was being gradually devoured by this feeling of despair, and his sanity was slowly collapsing. He felt like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered, awaiting the final judgment of fate, waiting to be slaughtered lamb. Suddenly, a sense of inexplicable familiarity surged in Song Wen's heart. It felt as if his memories were sealed, and no matter how hard he thought, he could not recall where this sense of familiarity came from. The crowd drew closer, and among them were severed heads and limbs, exploded bodies, and scattered internal organs. Suddenly, Song Wen realized where the feeling of being a lamb waiting to be slaughtered came from. It was from those corpses placed on the dissection table. On the dissection table, Song Wen was like the butcher, and the corpses were the lambs for sale. The lambs were dissected by Song Wen, blood and flesh separated, meat and bone detached. Song Wen suddenly laughed. The smile was fierce and twisted, his mouth corners pulled by an indescribable force as if it would tear all the way to the roots of his ears. His teeth were bared, revealing a chilling grin. His laughter was sharp and piercing, like a devil's wild laughter echoing from the depths of hell, sending chills down the spine, his expression was distorted as if all his muscles were spasming uncontrollably. In his eyes flashed a mad light with dilated pupils that seemed to want to swallow the entire world. His smile was filled with cruelty and madness, resembling a demon that had escaped from hell, eager to devour others. Is this what's called the heart tribulation? You dead souls, a bunch of corpses I've dismembered, actually think you can stop me from forming the golden core? Simply a delusion. Ha ha. Since you appear in my heart tribulation, let me send you off once more. Songwon still felt no magical power or cultivation within him. He remained like a mortal, yet his heart was filled with no fear. He was like an indomitable warrior on the battlefield, facing thousands of enemies alone, still fearless. Charging forward and launching a fierce assault against the foe with his own strength, he collided with the enemy of hundreds of thousands. Bang! Songwon crashed into a corpse. The corpse was like a patchwork, extremely fragile, limbs detached, the head flung away, and the body burst open. Bright red blood and the stench of internal organs splattered all over Songwon. Like a bloodthirsty demon awakened by the blood, he wore a face twisted with delirious madness. He was like a god of death, rampaging among the numerous corpses as if entering a no-man's land. Bright red flowers of blood bloomed in the air. Corpses exploded one after another. Severed limbs and internal organs fell to the ground, blood flowing freely. Die. Everyone must die. Ha ha. Songwen's mad laughter echoed throughout the void. He did not know how long he had been slaughtering. His entire body was soaked in blood, thick layers of filth covering his clothes. He was exhausted, his body ached, and his breathing was heavy. As if all his strength had been drained, his muscles felt like cotton, unable to support his body, and even standing became incredibly difficult. Chapter 390. In this void, Songwon was ultimately just a mortal. He fought endlessly, even when exhausted to the point of collapse. There were still many corpses remaining. It seemed that the killing intent radiating from Songwon terrified the corpses, making them dare not gaze directly at him or approach him. The corpses appeared like weaklings bullied by a villain, trembling and lowering their heads, their eyes darting around. Songwon was like a battered general, collapsed in the blood-soaked ground. He struggled to stand, looking at the group of corpses that seemed to be frightened out of their wits, his gaze disdainful. You all will die, you will all die. At this moment, Songwon seemed to have lost his mind, becoming a machine that knew only slaughter. He stumbled towards a corpse. Suddenly, his foot slipped. He fell onto the corpse. The corpse, unsteady on its feet, was knocked to the ground, instantly splintering into a pile of severed limbs. In this void, Songwon didn't know how long he had been killing. Here, time seemed to have lost its meaning. Yet, the corpses seemed endless, an eternal cycle of killing and dismemberment. Thud. Once again, Songwon collapsed to the ground in exhaustion. He had already lost count of how many times he had fallen. An indescribable fatigue lingered in his heart. He didn't want to get up anymore, didn't want to move, not even to wiggle a finger. He wanted to rest, to fall into a deep sleep, to sleep well for once, wishing never to awaken. Songwen's consciousness gradually blurred, his eyes slowly losing their luster, his twisted and frenzied expression slowly calmed. In reality, Songwen's chest suddenly stopped beating, a breath of death appeared around him. The golden core in his dantian also grew dim suddenly, as if sensing the dissipating vitality within Songwon. A black hole formed in his sea of consciousness. In the void, amidst the madness, Songwon suddenly awoke. He realized that he was breaking through the golden core realm, facing the heart tribulation. Everything before him was merely an illusion created by the heart tribulation. He could not sink into this. Otherwise, he would face the fear of death. He stood up, closed his eyes tightly, crossed his legs, focused his mind, and ignored everything in the void. The void began to collapse gradually. His consciousness returned. Songwen's eyes snapped open. He was back in his cave dwelling. He felt utterly drained, his consciousness hazy. Songwen took out a life-forging pill and swallowed it. The pill melted instantly upon entering his mouth, with the power of the pill assisting him. His mental strength gradually recovered, and his consciousness became clearer. But the heart tribulation was not over yet. As his vision blurred, Songwon was pulled back into the illusion. This time, he faced those who had died by his hands: Ji-in, Wu Yu, Shi Shou, Wu Sui, Wu Ren, Guotao, Wan Ro, Ai Kuan, Lei Tianyu. These people appeared before Song when one by one Ji-in resented him. blaming Song-won for not being grateful. He had led Song-won onto the path of immortality, only to meet a tragic end under Song-won's treachery. Sho was unwilling to have spent over a decade planning, only to end up being a wedding dress for Song-won. Wu Run was furious, angry that a dignified golden core cultivator had died at the hands of the weak Song-won. Ai Kuan pleaded, begging Song-won to spare him from the torment of the wooden post. Each person had their own reasons. None were willing to die, having experienced the previous illusion. Song-won no longer paid attention, letting these voices buzz around him. He steadied himself, seated in meditation, as the gentle breeze brushed over the mountain ridge. He maintained a clear consciousness, not allowing the illusion to deceive him. He didn't know how long had passed, perhaps sensing that it could not confuse Song-won. The illusion finally dissipated on its own. However, the heart tribulation continued. Nyo, Zhang, Chang, Yuan Cheng, Chen Yi, Sun Ru, and others appeared before Song-won once more. These individuals had all had connections with Song-won and ultimately died prematurely for various reasons. They loudly accused Song-won of being indifferent. If Song-won had not stood by and chosen to help, perhaps they wouldn't have died. In the face of these accusations, Song-won remained unmoved, as if a high monk in meditation. After a long time, the illusion dissipated again. Song-won's consciousness returned to reality. He swallowed another life-forging pill, this being the fourth one he had taken. As Song-won waited for the illusion to return, he suddenly noticed that the obscure and difficult-to-define aura had abruptly vanished. The heart tribulation had ended. The Corpse King rebirth technique began to operate. Song-won's physical body started to devour the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. With the enormous spiritual energy provided by countless low-grade spirit stones, it transformed into a torrent of magical power, flowing into the golden core. The golden core shone brilliantly. The aura around Song-won rapidly rose. The process of the golden core absorbing spiritual energy lasted a full month. This island did not have an abundance of spiritual energy, and to avoid problems during the golden core formation due to insufficient energy, Song-won shattered nearly 100,000 low-grade spirit stones for the golden core to absorb. When the golden core ceased absorbing the surrounding spiritual energy, Song-won did not immediately end his seclusion. He spent over another year stabilizing his cultivation. Finally, on this day, Song-won had adapted to the surging magical power. He opened several formations within his cave dwelling, wanting to exit when he saw a large stone blocking the entrance. The stone was broken and battered, evidently a remnant from the island's ruins. How could there be a large stone blocking the cave entrance? Song-won was puzzled and used his spiritual sense to investigate outside. The entire island was calm and peaceful with no anomalies. As he circled to the other side of the stone, his eyes lit up. A sea chart was drawn on it. It turned out that during Song-won's seclusion, the sacred goo outside the cave discovered the stone and moved it here. After rewarding each sacred goo with a meatball, Song-won began to study the map carefully. Due to the passage of tens of thousands of years, the sea chart was heavily eroded, its markings mottled and difficult to discern, but it indicated his current location and pointed toward the direction of the chaotic sea. According to the chart, the entire chaotic sea was shaped like an irregular semicircle. To the north lay land where the endless desert was found. The remaining three sides were shrouded in ghostly fog. The location where Song-won found himself was in the southeastern corner of the chaotic sea. The ghostly fog area protruded here, occupying a vast expanse of the outer sea. For this reason, this place became the closest point between the ghostly fog and the inner sea. Perhaps the Nether Shrine had chosen this point to establish a base on this island and set up a teleportation array in the ghostly fog area thousands of miles away. With the golden core fully formed and having obtained the sea chart, leaving the perilous outer sea teeming with monsters to reach the prosperous inner sea of humanity was just a matter of time. Song-won was in high spirits as he soared above the island, gazing at the rising sun by the sea. As the sun rose, rays of light spread out and the waves rolled endlessly in the morning light. Song-won extended his right hand and suddenly clenched his fist. Boom! A sonic boom erupted from his palm. He had not used any magical power. It was purely the strength of his physical body. Such a simple fist-clenching action was enough to crush the air. The Corpse King rebirth technique was a dual cultivation method of body and spirit. With the golden core completed, not only had his cultivation soared, but his physical body had also been greatly enhanced. Suddenly, a surge of ambition welled up in Song Wen's heart, a feeling as if he could punch through mountains and rivers. A powerful aura erupted from Song Wen. Wherever his aura passed, it was like a hurricane sweeping through. Giant trees snapped and stones flew, wild beasts fled, and birds took to the skies. The entire island trembled under his imposing presence. Suddenly, from the depths of the sea about 10 miles away from the island, a massive water column shot into the sky, piercing the clouds. In an instant, a fish tail several miles long broke the surface. Its scales shimmered with dazzling light, each scale the size of a water tank. The fishtail swung like a tempest, stirring up monstrous waves. The colossal waves crashed against the small island as if to shatter it entirely. The seawater surged onto the island, toppling countless large trees and sweeping away many beasts. Inundation swept through, leaving the island in ruins. At the moment when the massive fishtail stirred up the waves, Song Wen's heart trembled. He quickly restrained his aura and hid back in the cave. The breath concealment and spirit isolation array, 9 palaces in array, and yin yang 4 symbol formation were all activated. Fortunately, it seemed that the giant fish was perhaps just nearby hunting. Disturbed by the commotion on the island, after swimming around the surface for a while, it dove back into the depths of the sea, leaving only turbulent waves in its wake. TLN, damn fish, let him celebrate a bit.